there's so many angles to the Hexeth thing, but one angle is he going to lose his job? And this is the third round of my hearing from Republicans saying, check your sources. Hexeth is gone. They're done with him. The president doesn't like all the bad headlines. Blah blah blah. And then when I call the Hexeth people, they always say the same thing. You're being spun. These are evildoers. It's all a waste of your time. Nothing's going to happen to them. And then I watched the cabinet meeting, and if that guy's gone, it's the biggest bait and switch of all time. The president might as well have sat him on his lap and kissed him on the forehead. So, Tim, welcome in again. Thank you for being here. Where does Secretary Hegseth stand now as the leader of the Department of War?
I think that, as you said, I think that if I don't think he's going anywhere, and I think the cabinet meeting today confirmed it. I think there's a lot of reasons that he's not going anywhere. One is that Trump clearly just seems to like him, and Trump is stuck with him through potentially other bigger scandals. But I think the biggest one, and this has sort of been lost in this, is that I don't think Trump will scapegoat Hegseth in this situation because I think Trump is very proud of the strikes that they made on the Venezuelan narco-terrorist boats, and I think Trump wants to own this. I think Trump wants to be the commander in chief. I think he wants to say, "Yeah, I was okay with it." We saw some of that in the cabinet meeting today too. So I don't think that I don't think he has a need to scapegoat his Secretary of War right now because I don't think he wants to admit defeat. I don't think he thinks these are bad headlines.
Hans, when congressional Republicans not named Murkowski, Collins, Bacon, and a few
Wick,
others break
Wicker. Yeah.
Wicker, when they break from the president, typically it's either because of politics, their own personal politics is Trump's their fidelity, or they have a really strong feeling that something's not right, and they're still breaking with him on this. So what's motivating people like Roger Wicker and the former head of the Intelligence Committee, whose name's right out of my head, but you know it, in the House side.
Tom Cotton or
Yeah,
House side Rogers.
no, the former head of the Intelligence Committee from Texas, whatever.
Okay.
People are breaking.
McCall or McFall. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they're breaking. They're raising questions. What's motivating them?
Probably the severity of the initial reporting and there's just the sort of the explosiveness of it, right? This idea that there's a double tap, which seems to be like now sort of vernacular on the Hill. I probably talked to, I don't know, like 3 to 4 senators today using the term double tap, right? Um, the and there's a lack of information in general, especially for Democrats, on what's the legal justification for these strikes and what's happening. So there, I wouldn't go that far. Well, I had a conversation with Senator Blumenthal today about whether or not he thinks Senator Wicker will actually go forward with an investigation,
Yeah,
not just oversight.
right.
And Blumenthal was skeptical. Now, Wicker in the past has had some pretty hot comments on the president and the administration, how they've handled things. Remember, I want to say it was about J.D. Vance. He called it a rookie mistake before he went over to the Munich Security Conference. So, formal investigation, once if that happens, those are some pretty big mechanics, right? You have a preservation of documents, you have subpoenas. Before all that happens, there'll be interviews. On Thursday, the admiral in charge, Admiral Bradley, will be briefing or having a conversation with bipartisan groups of senators, I believe, on Senate Armed Services. So I feel like the easiest solution to all this is me just like release the full tape,
Right. For full
right?
tape and the legal
And
finding
yeah,
that
yeah.
justified the strike.
But like the conversation I had this morning, anytime you have a 4-star making decisions like that, there's usually a judge advocate general within arm's distance of that 4-star, right?
Yeah,
They are
always.
there, and that's just protocol.
Yeah.
And the idea that like we've all seen a lot of videos of these strikes. Why? Because the Trump administration has released them. So the idea of releasing the entire video of the September 2nd strike, and so we can all see, that seems like one potential way to clear this up. But I would say right now, great deal of distrust among Senate Democrats. They said this is the first they ever heard of it, that they weren't briefed about this and classified. The idea of a double tap, that was kind of a big development today. Some had kind of said they'd heard about it, but they want to be careful because it was in a classified setting on what they hadn't heard. But and skepticism that the Republicans, at least in the Senate, will do a real investigation.
Yeah, very well said. Thank you for that summary. And of course, many of you know Hans covers the Hill for Axios. I love when senators who are on the Intelligence Committee, House or Senate, either one, when they're asked a question, and they you can see their mind clicking of
Yeah.
what's been in the New York Times and in Axios that I can say because I can't say anything classified. And of course, often there's more in the New York Times than in the Axios classified briefing. So we got more information today. Secretary Hegseth sat next to the president, which is not unusual because often the two national security cabinet members flank the president. He got called on first. He talked at some length about a variety of topics, including about the Caribbean strikes, and then later, in response to reporters' questions, he gave the fullest account he's given of what happened, and we'll show you a bit of it in a moment. But basically, he says he ordered the strikes. He watched the first strike, and then he wasn't around for the alleged second strike, but he had no problem with it. And when the president was asked repeatedly, I'd say repeatedly because I think he was asked twice, what do you think of the second strike? Because the other day you said you wouldn't really be keen on a second strike. This is a summary, a paraphrase of the president. He said, humana, humana, humana. Didn't really fully address it. So here's Secretary Hegseth talking about the set. Well, here's number 7. Here's the headline from the Wall Street Journal. Hegseth says he didn't see strike on alleged drug boat that killed survivors. Defense Secretary backed decision to hit the vessel for a second time during September attack, but says he left the room when the order was given. That's the Wall Street Journal. Reminiscent of Al Gore saying he wasn't present for some discussions on fundraising using the Lincoln bedroom because he drank a lot of iced tea to stay awake. And if he drank a lot of iced tea, stay awake, he had to leave the room to go to the bathroom. Just that made me think of that because he says he left the room. Here's Secretary Hegseth in his own words describing what happened on that fateful day. Number 8, please.
You didn't see any survivors, to be clear, after that first strike.
I did not personally see survivors, but I stand, because the thing was on fire. It was exploded and fire and smoke. You can't see anything. You got digital. This is called the fog of war. This is what you in the press don't understand. You sit in your air-conditioned offices or up on Capitol Hill and you nitpick and you plant fake stories in the Washington Post about kill everybody, phrases on anonymous sources not based in anything, not based in any truth at all. And then you want to throw out really irresponsible terms about American heroes, about the judgment that they made. I wrote a whole book on this topic because of what politicians and the press does to warfighters. President Trump has empowered commanders to do what is necessary, which is dark and difficult things in the dead of night on behalf of the American people. We support them, and we will stop the poisoning of the American people.
And this is
Not quite a fact check, but I think pretty much every office in Washington has air conditioning. I'd be surprised if anybody doesn't have air conditioning. Either of you want to say anything else about this story? Again, there's multifacets, and I think the question of what the Hill does next, including hearing from the commander himself, scheduled for Thursday, is probably the big thing. But either of you want to say anything else about this?
I would just say, and you just sort of alluded to it, the hearing from the commander and anyone else who's actually on the ground or in the military chain of command below the president and Hegseth is going to be, I think, very important. And I almost sort of want to pump the brakes on, I mean, obviously we're not going to pump the brakes on reporting this. No one is. But I think, there's been a lot of obviously I'm not saying, it's a conspiracy or whatever, but of course, Trump and Hegseth have made themselves very public figures and have sort of owned this. So a lot of the stories are about them. But as you were saying, right, like there's definitely a jag within arm's reach. There's a 4-star general who was at the helm. I think that's really going to be when this is almost like the prologue. And I think that when we start hearing from the actual members of the chain of command who are on the ground and very much involved in this strike, that's when things are going to get either a little bit more interesting, either a little bit more confusing, a little bit more illuminated, but certainly more interesting.
I need to tell you about my friends at Cozy Earth who are still having a crazy sale, like crazy, Eddie, so crazy you won't believe it. 40% off everything on the Cozy Earth website. Go to cozyearth.com, promo code 2way for 40% off. The bubble cuddle blanket, the sheets, the towels, the pants, the t-shirts. I don't talk as much about the t-shirts as I should. They're perfect t-shirts. They're just perfect. 40% off if you go to cozyearth.com right now. And again, I'm warning you, if you buy the bubble cuddle blanket and you leave it out on the couch and you go to pop from the fridge, someone in your family will take it. It could be your dog. Someone will take the bubble cuddle blanket. So you need to guard it like a fox. And if you're going to get a pop from the fridge, just take it with you. That's my free advice. The pants I mentioned the other day, a lady texted me or emailed me and said she bought the pants for her husband. She's never thanked her for any clothes, never praised any clothes. Praise those clothes. Give the gift of comfort that lasts beyond the holidays and carries into a cozy new year. I didn't write that line, by the way. If I did, I would have touched it up a bit. Go to cozyearth.com, promo code 2way for 40% off. And if you order by December 12th, which by my calculations is in 10 days, the whole thing will be delivered to you in time for Santa. They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park, hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America. And don't forget, you can now listen to the morning meeting and two-way tonight on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.